It's the 3rd of July, and this is your News Bite brought to you by eNCA.com. I'm Marcel Gordon, and in your news today, it's a mixed bag of fuel price adjustments coming up this week. Trump says there'll be talks with Iran, but Iran says no way, Jose. And Banyana Banyana with their backs against the wall. Good news for some, but bad news for others. That's the story around fuel prices as we head into the new month. The Mineral and Petroleum Resources Department has announced the official fuel price adjustments for August. On Wednesday, the price of 93 and 95 octane petrol will come down by 52 cents a litre. Diesel users, however, will face a sharp increase, with a rise of between R1.38 per litre and R1.23 per litre. The department says the adjustments were driven by higher international diesel prices, a weaker rand against the US dollar, and of course renewed geopolitical tensions that disrupted global oil markets. Well, speaking of those geopolitical tensions, Iran said on Monday that there were no talks underway with the United States and no plans for any meetings. This is a direct contradiction of US President Donald Trump, who has said this weekend that talks would take place on Monday afternoon. And that's why he was calling off the massive military attack on Iran he claimed was on the cards just the day before that. It's a well-worn pattern we've seen from Trump over the last 5 months, announcing plans for massive attacks on Iran only to cancel them at the last minute. Our US correspondent Jagruti Dave has more on the president's latest climb down.
It's another sudden swing by Donald Trump away from military threats to Iran and back towards diplomacy. The US was planning to start a harsher bombing campaign this weekend, according to media reports. President Trump also repeatedly warned of imminent action.
We're going to be hitting them very hard because it's our turn to hit them. They know it's coming. They're asking us not to do it.
Then, late Saturday night, this Truth Social post. The US president saying he would cancel the attack, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal at the request of Iran and other Middle Eastern countries. Mr. Trump said the deal would include the immediate, complete and total opening of the Hormuz Strait and an end to Iran's nuclear threat. Tehran denies requesting a pause in US strikes, according to Iran state media. But the Saudi press agency confirmed Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called President Trump urging dialogue to reduce escalation. While Saudi Arabia and other Gulf nations are emphasizing the risks of regional and international instability from a wider conflict, here in the US there are ongoing concerns about the Trump administration's strategy, with most Americans surveyed in AP Norc's latest poll saying the war with Iran has not been worth fighting.
Back here in South Africa, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. That's the mantra the Department of Social Development is encouraging as it warns South Africans to be cautious of fake online job offers. The department says organized criminal syndicates are using these bogus job offers to lure victims into human trafficking. You may remember several South Africans needing to be rescued from scam compounds in Myanmar after they accepted what they believed were legitimate overseas job offers. Here's the department spokesperson, Sandy Kodlwana.
The department issued a media statement warning of the concerns that we have in terms of the online job scams, where people are lured, especially young people, to apply for jobs overseas. And of course, we're saying as a department, if it's too good to be true, indeed, you should really check and get all the information to ensure that indeed where you're applying for, it's legitimate, you've got background information, you've done your checks before you actually travel. Because what we see is that they post they share these posts on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter. They also, at times, if they have your number, share those adverts via the WhatsApp. So therefore, we're calling, especially on young people, to ensure that they first do their checks before they travel, because they find themselves now having to, work within these criminal syndicates, having to do work that is not in line with what they were promised.
Now, you may remember just last week here on Newsbite, we brought you the story of residents in suburbs like Randburg and Sandton where rubbish was piling up. Now, residents of Alexandra say they are being forced to live in increasingly unsanitary conditions as the Pikitup waste collection crisis continues. The township has effectively become a dumping ground, with rubbish piling up on streets and pavements. Now, although Pikitup deployed waste collection trucks over the weekend, residents say little progress has been made in clearing the backlog. The refuse collection delays stem from ongoing protests at Pikitup's Marlborough depot in Sandton. eNCA's Nabila Sheikh spoke to this frustrated resident in Alex.
From Alex as a community boy, a youth, I'm selling rotten eggs here in front of Rug. From Alex as a community boy, a youth, I'm selling rotten eggs here in front of rubbish. Each and every day we're cleaning. When we see Pikitup people, when we're asking them about this rubbish thing, they're just telling us that they want more increased money. But increased money and rubbish is affecting our community. Kids are out of school now. They're going to be playing there at the rubbish because we don't have bigger pavements in Alex. Alex is too small. We don't have things like parks that our kids are going to play there and rubbish. We even sell cookies there, fat cakes in the morning for people who's going to work. This is my business as a young youth, doing business in the community. But this rubbish is always affecting us because each and every day people are doing rubbish there. People are doing rubbish. Even those ones who want what is this? Plastic for cash, they're going there, tearing those rubbish, making rubbish to be all over the place. They don't care about those plastic that we do that.
As a community, have you been receiving any feedback from the authorities, from Pikitup, from your ward councillor as well, about when all of this rubbish is going to be cleared?
To be honest, other streets we can see there's Pikitup people who's trying to help. They bring in trucks, but those trucks are not enough for us. We have a lot of community, we have a lot of people in Alex.
The IEC has added over 750,000 first-time voters to the National Voters Roll over its 2 registration weekends the last few months. This past weekend recorded 291,000 new voters. The Chief Electoral Officer, Simon Mabolo, added that more than 1.7 million people interacted with the IEC over Saturday and Sunday by visiting the country's 23,699 voting stations or using the online registration portal. Now, the majority of those interactions would have been voters updating and checking their registration details. 26% of all the transactions over the weekend were by young people aged 16 to 29. The IEC's online registration portal will remain active until midnight on the 7th of August, when the elections will be proclaimed by the COCTA minister.
Voting district within a ward in which they live. This is important because in local government elections, there is no provision to vote outside of the voting station of registration. In terms of provincial outcomes, KwaZulu-Natal recorded the highest registration transactions at 427,000. It was followed in the second place by Gauteng at 314,000 transactions. In third comes the Eastern Cape with 313,000 transactions. Just to give you a complete provincial picture, 427,000 KZN, Gauteng 314,000, Eastern Cape 313,000, Limpopo 209,000, Western Cape 134,000, Mpumalanga 133,000, Northwest 116,000, the Free State 97,000, and the Northern Cape 47,000.
In other news we're keeping an eye on, the case against alleged political fixer Brown Mogotsi has been postponed for full disclosure of the docket. Mogotsi made a brief appearance in the Joburg Magistrates Court on Monday. The matter was postponed to the 20th of August. The court dismissed a request by the defense for names and addresses of some witnesses to be disclosed because of security concerns. In Cape Town, firefighters and aerial support teams continued to battle a blaze on Table Mountain. The public had been warned to avoid affected parts of the mountain over the weekend. Firefighters have been focusing on cooling down isolated hotspots. Evacuations were ordered over the weekend, but no injuries or property damage have occurred. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. And on to the world of sports now. Banyana Banyana's women's AFCON fate is not completely in their own hands as they take on Burkina Faso in their final Group B clash on Monday night. The South Africans must win to have any chance of still making the quarterfinals, but they must also hope for a result of some sort in the match between Ivory Coast and Tanzania. If that game ends in a draw, it's the end of the road for Desiree Ellis and her Chargers. Calls for South Africa to adopt VAR will only now intensify after an incident during a first-round PSL match which saw Polokwane City beat Richards Bay 2-1. The hosts had a serious call for a penalty in the second half, turned down by the ref, who awarded a corner instead. Confusion ensued when the ref consulted one of the assistants, altering his decision to a penalty, only to change his mind again and stick to the original decision of a corner. Well, with the Springboks settling in Argentina ahead of their test on Saturday, it's rugby news out of Melbourne that's caught our eye. Veteran Wallabies playmaker Quade Cooper, remember him, is eyeing a comeback in time for the next Rugby World Cup that's set to take place in Australia next year. The 38-year-old has 80 tests under his belt and says he never actually retired. And he may have a shot because the Wallabies have been struggling to bed down their number 10 jersey. Their now retired national team coach using 9 players in that key position in the last year alone. And Cooper's not the only experienced player eyeing a World Cup comeback. Experienced backs Bernard Foley and James O'Connor are also reportedly looking for a route back to on-field action. And that's how we wrap today's News Bite. For developments in these and more, keep an eye on eNCA.com and DSTV channel 403.